Alright. Alright, welcome to the another episode of Jay's Pod. I'm your host Jay Lakhani. Let's get started. So today we're going to talk about bicyclist safety and bike lanes because we're in Vancouver, and it's a huge topic.
Go to hell.
Come on, Nawaz.
Go to hell, Gavin.
Nawaz, do it.
Go to hell. Go to hell.
And well, Gavin, one of the producers over here, is a huge cyclist.
Yeah, sure.
So
Somewhat,
it's personal for you, right?
It's very personal.
It's very
go
personal.
No,
Bring it on.
yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it's I
see
like
you.
cycling.
I'll see you later
It's
on the
good for
road.
you. You're gonna win though. There's no way I'm gonna come out of that alive in any way.
That's okay.
That's okay.
It's fair.
All right. So what are your thoughts on all the bike lane situation that's been happening?
Like building
Yeah.
cycling infrastructure. Great, awesome. Go, Mary Gregor Robertson, man. Like
Oh, yeah,
he's
go.
been doing.
Make sure the mic is a bit closer.
He's been doing a great job. Yeah, he's been doing a great job. You know.
Yeah.
I think.
So Gavin.
I think cycling infrastructure.
Since you enjoy it so much,
Yeah.
maybe you should pay for it.
I do pay for it.
How do you pay for it?
Well, it's actually.
How much real estate do you own in Vancouver?
Well, none.
Did you vote in the last election?
I didn't actually. Did you vote though?
Hell no.
No, I know, but like, a lot of people don't like him now. You know, the election's coming up, right? Next year.
Yes, it is.
So he's probably gonna get voted out though. I'm not too familiar with like the municipal elections, to be honest. Who the fuck even cares about them? But it's the last.
It actually matters a lot.
It does, but
it's hard to engage in it because we don't know who the hell anyone is.
Exactly. It's like, hey, who's this white guy? You know.
In
It's
my
like,
area, it's mostly Asian dudes.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, you like biking.
I do. I mean, I think the more cycling infrastructure there is, the better the city will be. I mean,
Okay.
that's just my opinion.
So, I did this research on, the bike infrastructures, right? So,
Sure.
it says over the decades, like experienced cyclists and cycling advocacy organizations have often argued against dedicated cycling paths.
Oh.
So, in one study, the German Cyclist Union (ADFC)
Mhm.
noted that cyclists in the Netherlands are involved in 40% of all traffic accidents,
Wow.
while accounting for only 27% of travel, despite of prolifications of bicycle lanes.
Mhm.
In Germany, which has far fewer bike lanes, the proportion of accidents were lower.
Interesting.
The ADFC's position, like that of many others, is that cyclists who know that they are safer in the traffic amongst cars than in bike lanes alongside them.
You know, it kind of makes sense because your inexperienced rider is more likely to use a bike lane.
Hidden experienced cyclists.
Well, yes, exactly.
So it's
partially.
So it's like cycling on cycling accidents, right? Within bike lanes.
Well, I'm sure it would be, but also because it's a complacency that's built into those. So now BC's bike infrastructure, we have bike routes and everything.
Mhm.
So ideally, those roads have a lot of bicyclists on it, and some of them probably aren't as experienced, but they're assuming that the drivers are going to give them right of way because they're in a bike lane.
Right.
They're assuming the infrastructure protects them.
Which it does though.
But it takes away,
I feel.
it creates a complacency, right? So
It does.
they're more likely to make a mistake. Less experienced
well,
riders are going to be on the road,
That's true.
and they're going to start hitting experienced riders because
Well,
they're
it's
not
because they feel more safe in the bike lane, which in turn makes them
complacent.
which in turn makes them more daring, right? And take more risks.
For sure, yeah.
So,
Have you guys seen any like bike and pedestrian collision?
Yeah, I did actually. Well, not often.
Mhm.
Mind you, it's more likely to happen, but the bicyclists are usually a little too nimble when they're breaking the rules to weave
Right.
through traffic to actually get hit.
Mhm.
But I remember a friend of mine changed lane one time back in high school, and bicyclist actually just face planted himself onto the side of his car. Okay, that was awesome, by the way.
so the cyclist is changing lanes, or the driver?
Well,
Was
the
changing
thing is,
lanes?
everyone was stopped.
Yeah.
The cyclist thought he had right away because special treatment,
Yeah.
low IQ. We don't know yet.
Well, what if he was just riding a bike and he can weave in and out of traffic?
But
Do you think that was
that's not something.
It's not legal. Though.
That's not legal.
Lane splitting is illegal, right?
He's
But
a road user.
it is. I don't. But let's just say that was the case, which it was, right?
And now his face is a bruise on it. Maybe some teeth are missing.
So I mean, it's his fault. I mean,
I think the funniest one I've ever
dumb
seen.
people are dumb people, right?
But they say the driver should be doing shoulder checks. Find out if there's somebody in the lane as he's changing lanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem is your bicycles are too small. How are we even supposed to see you? You're gonna weave through one back behind us to the side of us, in two different spots. You guys think you guys own the road,
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think in terms of that, there's actually something called the Dutch reach, and it's actually like a certain driving technique that they teach in Dutch driving schools because there are like, I mean, the Netherlands has the highest population of cyclists in the world, if ratio wise, right? Because there's only I think 15 million people in the Netherlands. So, I mean, yes, the population is half that of Canada, but I think approximately 40% of people commute via bike in Amsterdam, and it's 58% commute via bike in Copenhagen. So the numbers are like.
So what is the Dutch reach?
I can't remember, but it's apparently the process by which you're supposed to.
Sure,
It's kind of like a shoulder check, but even like.
Gavin,
Sorry.
Mike.
So it's kind of. I was trying to show it. I was trying to show the Dutch reach, but it's kind of like a.
I don't want to know what sexual position you're trying to teach us right now, but
It's kind of like a shoulder check, but it involves looking at a specific spot in your car where cyclists will usually be at.
Okay,
so
now we must accommodate your special needs.
Well, you have to accommodate pedestrians that are walking the sidewalk. You don't make left turns when people are.
No, we don't though. But they're in front of us. Now I have to look back to see whether you're breaking the road rules.
Right, because we're more vulnerable, just like pedestrians, right?
No, but we understand that. But now, why should we let a vulnerable road user on the road impede traffic, slow down maneuvers, and then you know what? If we hit you, it's our fault because you know what? You're more vulnerable. We're supposed to be protecting you.
Well, I don't know if that's the case statistically, whether if drivers hit cyclists and it's the cyclist's fault that somehow the driver ends up being sued because they have the right of way, but I don't know. That seems like it just might be an issue in terms of a driver cyclist mentality because I mean obviously drivers don't like cyclists don't like drivers. So do you think that maybe that statistic is quite
I like cyclists.
Unreal?
I like cyclists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when they're off the road.
I mean, but I haven't heard of a lot of cases by which a cyclist a car was hit by a cyclist hit a car or a car hit a cyclist, and somehow in all these scenarios that the driver was to blame, even though the cyclist was incorrect.
Well, you got to think about the other impact of this, right? Now, how does it change how we drive as we drive near cyclists? It changes what we do.
Right, for
we
sure.
start going slower than we're supposed to.
Yeah, of course.
We start slowing down.
Yeah.
We become vulnerable to drivers driving that are faster.
Which is why
we can't change lanes into the lanes because you decided to go 2 kilometers an hour in a lane that should be going 50.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why we should build cycling lanes, right? So we don't ride in.
Clearly, you guys can't be trusted to drive in your own lanes based on the statistics we heard.
I don't know about that specific statistic, but in Copenhagen, about a majority of people actually commute by bike, which is over 50% now as of 2017. And to me, I feel like it's actually a lot safer than to drive there.
Okay. How many car accidents have you been in?
0.
How many bike accidents have you been in?
3.
That's
but do you know why though?
Why?
It's because I actually cycle more than I drive. I don't even drive actually.
How many car accidents have I been in? 0.
How many bike accidents have you been in?
0.
Exactly, right? Because you don't bike as well, right? I don't drive. That's why I don't have any driving license.
Even though I drive more, I still don't get into accidents. So now your ability to not get into an accident.
Right. But I don't want to speak on a personal level for myself because I do go a lot faster than the average cyclist, so I do do more daring things and stuff like that. And most of the accidents that I was involved in was not even involving a motor vehicle. It was involving with myself, just me falling off my bike, going way too fast.
So speaking of accidents, you told me to watch this video, this TED Talk by Michaela Colville Anderson.
Yeah.
And who is very much against helmets. And you told me that the reason why you're alive at the moment is because you had an helmet on.
Yeah.
So tell us about what happened.
Oh, I just I was involved in a cycling accident 2 years ago where I hit a parked car. I don't know how. I was traveling very fast, over 60 kilometers an hour, downhill at Prospect Point in Stanley Park. Can't remember how I hit the car. I might have turned weirdly, but I had a concussion, so I can't remember 2 kilometers of riding. I just woke up in an ambulance, and that's it. Okay. And apparently the helmet saved my life, thanks to the doctor who told me. Yeah.
So you did a dangerous maneuver, hurt your head, but the safety.
I don't know if I did a dangerous maneuver. The speed zone at Prospect Point is 30 kilometers an hour, but a lot of drivers actually tend to. It's a good area to like drive your sports car in because it's like
Hey, I can see that.
it's
Yeah.
very windy and
I've done it.
right.
It's a
And
good time.
people usually go like 60 to 70.
No,
I
for
mean,
sure.
I'm going 60 kilometers an hour, and there are cars still past me, right? So no one follows a 30k
Right.
at our speed zone.
Well, it's Vancouver.
Hopefully, no police are hearing this. But
I
you
do
know,
not break the road rules. Stay away from me.
I am a
please.
good cyclist. I didn't kill anyone. Yeah, but I mean, just yeah. So yeah, the helmet saved my life.
I like
That's
how he
quite-
says that like how we describe society's obsession with safety equipment as like almost pornographic. You know why he wondered like don't pedestrians wear helmets as they suffer more brain damage
Sure.
from than cyclists?
I'd like
Sure.
to contend that this individual who made this TED talk likely injured his head several times.
and that's why he this is why he's thinking like this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no damage there. Concussion
Yeah.
after concussion, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
The damage will add up.
Sure.
But like my opinion is that, okay, so you don't want to wear a helmet, sure, but now when you get hurt, who's going to be responsible for you? When you have that catastrophic brain injury, you're going to become a
Yourself.
vegetable.
It should be
No,
yourself.
No, but you're not though. See, the thing is, it's an externalization of the issue. Your
Mm-hmm.
family suffers. Number
Okay,
one.
sure.
Somebody's gonna have to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's gonna suffer you to lose. They're gonna lose the breadwinner or the child or whoever
Yeah.
it is. Followed by
Healthcare
society.
system.
Now
Right. Healthcare system because we have to pay for your injury.
we do. We also lose a productive member of society. Hopefully,
Right.
hopefully for.
Sure.
So, so what I'm saying is, there's an externalization of your negative.
Mm-hmm.
All the negative things you do because you decided to be reckless for 5 minutes,
Right.
not take your own safety into account.
Sure.
Now, if you want to take a risk,
Mhm.
maybe there should be something that you do to mitigate the damage you cause.
With a helmet.
Well, even with the helmet, even if you do something stupid,
Mhm.
like when we get a car, right?
Yeah. You have seatbelts.
We are insured. We have seat belts.
Mhm.
There's all these features are mandated.
Right.
There's no surprise there.
Mhm.
We're driving a vehicle that can go 200 kilometers an hour.
Sure.
It's not a joke.
No, for sure not.
But
No.
you told me you're going 60
Yeah.
in Stanley Park. So you know what? You can go pretty fast too.
Mhm.
So now we take all these responsibilities on ourselves. We take responsibility for ourselves. We take responsibility for the other person in the vehicle.
Mhm.
Cyclists don't want to take the responsibility. If you're not going to be a responsible road user,
Mhm.
and you can't be responsible for your own injuries, there's no liability. Liabilities on everyone else but you.
I don't know if that's statistically true in terms of like who's the like if a cyclist does get injured, who's
We're not
responsible?
It's not about
Obviously-
who's responsible. It's about what's going to happen to you realistically on a actual we don't sue each other in Canada like we sue like the Americans sue each other.
Sure.
We can't get that much money out of somebody
Right.
because precedent and all those things prevent it.
Mhm.
We can't go after like extra damages. It's just something we're based on actual losses, right?
Right.
So there's only so much we can do on that side.
Right.
So when you look at it from a perspective of, let's say, if you cause damage to yourself,
Mhm.
society's going to pay for it,
For sure.
no matter what. So
Of
now,
course.
if we choose to let you mandate that you mitigate your damage,
Mhm.
prevent a catastrophic injury, so you don't become a burden on the state and the rest of society,
Right.
I think that's fair.
Okay. But do you think a lot of these things are double standards in terms of what drivers have as well?
Have you ever got a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt before?
No, but I haven't. But there is something called the Motor Vehicle Act, and a lot of the court cases that have been used as precedent uses that exact act. And a lot of drunk drivers have gotten almost no prison sentence. A lot of drivers that have killed pedestrians have gotten maybe like 1 or 2 years in jail. Just a couple years ago, a lady was under DUI, killed a toddler, and she only got 2 years in prison. And her excuse was that she was fired from work and that she was going through mental trauma. And that's why she drank, and that's why she got in her vehicle and killed a toddler. And yeah, she got a 2-year prison sentence.
Well, Canada's legal system,
Sure.
like I'll be completely upfront, my
Sure.
opinion of it is that it's a little lax.
Right.
Our punishments are very weak.
Mhm.
But we're not the United States. We're not going to throw people in jail for 20 years for a simple mistake.
Sure.
Because you know what? These people might still be productive. They might be rehabilitated.
Sure.
They might be helped.
But do you think it's a double standard that
But
somehow cyclists are all like sheltered from any
you're sheltered.
liability?
It's not the liability. I'm talking about the externalization of the damage you cause.
Mm-hmm.
So you damage yourself, but you damage society at the same time when you achieve this. Why do you think people have to wear seatbelts in their car?
Sure.
It's because when you die,
Right.
it's expensive.
It is very expensive. Right.
Because death is not just your death is just one drop in a bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
It ripples outwards.
Right.
You might be making the funeral home some money, but you're not working anymore.
Right.
You're out of everything. You're gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're no good to society, and we want to protect society, right? We protect each other.
For sure.
It's this is how Canadians are, right? In our previous segment, you said Canadians, we look after each other, right?
Hopefully, right? So when I get on my bike tonight, you're not gonna run me over, right?
No promises.
All right.
So do you think the cyclists should share the same lanes as motorized vehicles? You think that would?
I don't think that's safe for cyclists in the first place, and it's not productive for drivers.
I agree. I agree.
And that's why I think there should be dedicated cycling infrastructure to separate that, right? So we're safe on both ends. You can get to your place faster because we decrease congestion with these bike lanes because more people will convert from driving to cycling because now that they see that there's a bike lane, maybe they want to try cycling. That's actually what happens. That's what cycling lanes do.
No, I get it. But like for me, I'd like to see a cost-benefit analysis.
Sure.
Like I'd like to really understand what the cost of implementing these bike lanes are.
Okay.
I'd like to see the impediment on regular traffic because when you do a bike lane, it's not a victimless crime. Mind you, I call it a crime. So,
right.
so
right.
Right. Okay. What I'm saying is you're taking up a lane. You're taking something that was productive, that allowed vehicles to go somewhere.
Right.
Like let's say you're in downtown Vancouver, right?
Sure.
Now we have bike lanes in between in there.
Yeah.
We have things that are taking up taking a space a car could be in.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's gone. Now we have more cars sharing similar lanes. It's 2 lanes rather than 3.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're trading off for your comfort.
Right.
But how many people are biking? I see some days where those bike lanes are completely empty.
Right, but I feel like that's very short-sighted in terms of what the city council is trying to do with bike lanes because it took Copenhagen 50 years to develop these lanes for people to convert from driving to cycling.
But they also did other things.
Since the 60s.
They also did other things. They didn't just make bike lanes.
I'm sure. I mean, there was a lot of different things going on in terms of like funding cycling infrastructure and funding associations with cycling and stuff like that. I'm sure. Like and safety, right?
Okay, so now what is your willingness to pay to actually get these bike lanes put in for your utility?
Oh, well, for our utility.
No, your utility.
Because what happens?
I don't bike.
Right, but what happens a lot of the times is, well, unfortunately we're a democracy, right? So you'd have to.
That's not democracy.
We don't run under a majority, right? So there's a lot of things that you pay for that otherwise you don't use.
The majority of Canadians that vote influence the decisions that are made at government. So we are kind of working on a majority.
Right, but we don't work on a process by which we ignore the minority. Like we give the minority a voice as well. Like a lot of the things that you pay taxes for, you don't use, like public transit.
But
you don't use public transit, right? But yet you pay for it. Like TransLink, right?
Because it allows people with less money to get to places they need to be.
Sure, and a lot of
same with bikes as well.
A lot of cyclists are lower income people.
But maybe you guys can use the excellent infrastructure we've created in terms of buses and SkyTrains.
Sure.
The billions of dollars of public money that have gone into this, and now instead you've chosen to create a separate route for yourself.
Mm-hmm. For us.
To impede.
For us actually, because
your separate route impedes on people though. Is that not correct? Like, is it not interfering with people?
If you think in a short-term basis.
But is Vancouver a good place to bike?
It's a wonderful place to bike.
What time of the year?
Weather shouldn't permit any. Weather shouldn't disallow someone not to use a cycling lane.
But what percentage of riders will agree with you? Because let's say when it's raining, which it is quite often in Vancouver. Let's be honest here.
Sure.
Are bike users just as safe as they are otherwise?
When it's raining?
Yeah.
No, I mean, but drivers aren't as well, right?
No, but we don't. Most drivers don't get into accidents in Vancouver because of rain. Because you know what? We're a little insulated. We have vehicles that prevent water from getting into our eyes. Prevent our wheels from getting too wet.
But that's not to say that they still don't get into more accidents
when it rains, of course, it does happen, but on a relative basis. Now, then let's say bikers, leisure bikers, do they get off the road?
Into cycling lanes? Yeah.
Yeah. Do they get but do they not come off? Do they not come out at all? How many bikers stay off the road when it rains?
I'd say a majority of them, yeah.
So now, we've got a road built for your 10% of bikers that
Sure.
are comfortable enough to ride
Sure, yeah.
during rainy periods
Yeah.
for a period of time within the year that's massive.
Right.
It rains all the time. in
Yeah, I'd
Vancouver.
say a majority of the year, yeah, over 50% of the year.
So
it
now
probably rains, yeah.
we're dedicating a lane to you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
road users of your style that are not going to be using it for most
sure.
of the year.
For sure, but once again, actually, it snows and rains in Copenhagen.
Of course it does.
Still 58% of people transit by
do
bus.
people live close to where they work in Copenhagen?
I think people live close to where they work here as well, but I'm not
Can
saying
they afford to? Because we have a housing crisis in Vancouver.
we do, but that's not to say that the standard of living in Copenhagen is very high.
So this is
as well.
bikes for the rich. Leisure bikers, people that feel that they're so comfortable that they can afford to live that close to where they work in Vancouver. Now, cost of living in Vancouver is not a joke.
No, of course not.
So this is not about low-income people. This is about the rich people that live close enough to work, and 100% of and bike every day, 100% of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, what percentage are they?
I'd say very low currently, but I mean that's a whole other issue, right? I mean, in terms of like bike lanes and just sticking to bike lanes and disregarding the cost of living and stuff like that. If you think if you think in the long-term process and you just use these cities as an example, it's kind of a no-brainer, to be honest.
I'd like to see you need a cultural shift for us to become like Copenhagen.
You do.
We're a long way from being Copenhagen, and I think it's gonna take more than bike lanes.
Of course.
To actually do a transition from.
For sure.
From Vancouver to Copenhagen.
Yeah, but that's why.
So why should we invest right now into infrastructure that
Right.
clearly is too early for its time?
But that's kind of like saying, why should we invest in renewable energy? Like, it's so inefficient right now. Like, gas is so much more efficient still than
But there's real and present risks there. We're not talking about.
Right. But there are.
They're electric cars. You
Sure.
know what? But we have global warming on us. But
Right.
that's an existential risk.
Right.
We are. If once that kicks in, we are done as a species.
So that's ironic then. So shouldn't you make more?
Huh?
That would
be
be
so
so
awesome.
awesome.
Sure, but isn't that ironic that
What's wrong with you?
it's an impending risk, right? So at the same token, don't you think that people who drive less and bike more would contribute less to that risk then?
But driving is not actually the cause of global warming. We can drive electric cars. Driving as a function of as a road user, we can shift that. You can use different energy sources to achieve driving.
Sure, but an easier way to do that is just to.
But can you
Can
you make yourself better at riding in the rain? Can you make every rider better at riding in the rain in Vancouver?
For sure.
So that we can get better utilization of this millions of dollars of investment.
For sure,
we put down for you guys.
No, for sure, you just create more infrastructure. Like it will convince
infrastructure.
It will convince more people to use the
Build
bike
an
lanes.
umbrella on a bike.
Do we need to handle people?
Well, it snows and rains in every city, and yet people still bike, like in Copenhagen.
I don't think we're gonna get anywhere with this. We have to find like a middle ground. And as you can tell by my silence, I don't give a shit. I don't ride bikes, and I have no issues with bike lanes or bikes.
I just don't understand the investment.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know.
That's understandable.
Well, it's because a lot of these. Because people don't really see things in terms of like the long-term process, because it does take a long time. You know what I mean?
But you don't convey the vision. What is the vision? How will the bike lanes that take up traffic lanes today improve the quality of life tomorrow?
Okay.
20 years from now, 30 years from now.
I'll tell you. Okay. I'll tell you right now. Actually, number one, right? Okay. If you look at the number one cause of global warming, right? It's methane, right? Carbon monoxide.
Okay.
Right? Cars emit a lot of CO2, right? It's the number one contributor to global warming, right? So if you get I know you're gonna make the electric car argument, like we can just shift into electric cars instead of bikes, right? But that's another.
Don't assume anything that I'm gonna argue. Continue.
Okay, but you just did say that though.
I made that argument, but there's definitely more arguments.
Okay, sure. And another argument I want to add to that is that on top of electric cars, people can bike, right? Because not everyone can afford an electric car. Number two, if you look at the most livable cities in the world, right, which is Amsterdam, Copenhagen, a lot of these Dutch cities that are very cycling friendly, they are constantly in the livability index in the top 5 most livable cities. I'm not sure if that's a coincidence, right? I mean, it might be, I don't know, but it seems like cities that have better infrastructure and that are more pedestrian friendly and cycling friendly are usually more livable and more friendly.
I don't disagree. Now,
right?
Listen, Vancouver might not be the best fit for your Copenhagen.
It might not be.
Because
at the moment.
But that's why I'm saying maybe we don't need permanent bike lanes. You know what? Maybe if you guys, maybe 80% of bikers are gonna use a bike lane maybe 20% of the year. Why don't we have
Sure.
pop-up bike lanes?
What-
Why should we sacrifice
Okay.
all of the productivity gains,
Sure.
the speed of traffic can move at,
Okay.
for your 5%, 10% use?
I feel like that would be even more cost detrimental though. The process by which you have to like
You-
open and close a
Do you
bike
think
lane.
they don't maintain those
determining on-
lanes? You
But
think-
like opening
there's
and closing a bike lane weather determined, it's like so ineffective though.
no,
Like
I
let's
don't-
say it's sunny the next day, now you're gonna have to open it
no,
up.
I don't, actually, that's not what I meant. I'd say, you know what? In the summer, we set it up for you guys.
Okay.
One time a year. That's
Sure.
it. We,
Sure.
we set a date. It's done. It's like a hiking trail. You
Okay.
cannot access it past X date.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna find. Like I said, I don't think we're gonna find a middle ground on this. So, final thoughts.
Fuck cyclists.
Let him speak
Good night.
for you.
Good night. No.
I don't think honestly. I have nothing wrong with cyclists. I think that's
don't
a
either.
great thing to do.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think the utilizing thing. I think there has to be accountability
Sure.
for every road user.
Mhm.
There should be, if you're gonna be on the road, don't make it everyone else's problem.
Okay.
If you're gonna hurt yourself, not wear a helmet, do all those things, and you want to be above the rules,
Mhm.
you know what? When you get hit by a car, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear that we're gonna be footing your medical bill. I don't want to hear about that.
Right.
Because we are.
But what if drivers that are speeding and die?
And then that's
Right.
another problem, right? There's insurance. They're insured.
So-
They've taken the responsibility of saying, you know what? I'm a road user. I paid for my insurance. I'm acting responsibly. I might be acting irresponsibly today, but when I hit somebody, that person's gonna still be covered.
Sure.
No.
Right, Gavin.
Well, I said most of what I wanted to say, but I think first of all, I mean, in terms of bike lanes, I think it's a no-brainer. It's obviously good for the city in the long term. Just I don't want to use Copenhagen as an example all the time, because it's easy to use that as an example and say, hey, we should be like them. But if you think about it in terms of just statistics and just looking at the numbers and the cost effectiveness of bike lanes, it actually will be it would actually be a benefit in the long run, because if you look at the three major causes of death in the world, it's heart disease, lung cancer, and diabetes, right? And all those three things are increased when you just sit and drive in a car for hours on end in a day.
Okay.
Right? And all those three things are mitigated by cycling. So you're essentially accomplishing many things at once just by biking to work. I mean, you're contributing to you're contributing less to global warming. You're contributing more in terms of taxpayer dollars to the healthcare system, because you're healthier now, so we don't have to fucking pay for like your heart problems or diabetes because you're driving, because it contributes. It's a fact. Driving contributes to heart disease and diabetes.
No, I don't.
Is
I
that why
don't. I don't doubt
is
that.
that is that why I have a heart condition? Because I drive.
No,
Probably-
that's because you're UJ.
I mean, right? Everything in the long, you have to look at everything in the long term, right? And if you look at Copenhagen, they're actually making more money off of cycling infrastructure because there's less liability, right? Because cars cause way more damage. You're way more likely to die in a car accident than a bike accident. Like you're actually, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure you're 100 times more likely.
All right, we'll try it out tonight.
We'll try it out tonight.
All right.
Just
yeah.
you know what? Should tell me which road you're using.
All right. So, whenever you're in charge of any class of transportation, a part of your brain cell called cerebrum, which is a large part of your neurological system, is responsible for common sense and many other things. I know you've got it. Please use it, and you might be able to get to your destination safe and sound.
Have they studied the cerebrums of
Yep.
bicyclists? Yeah?
It's probably lower. It's probably, it's probably smaller. I don't know. But
Well, he did,
Hit his head.
hit his head. So, all right, that is all for the segment. Have a wonderful fucking life.